Hey guys, it's MetaGamesGX here, and I'm just going to be talking about my current branded build that I've been using for the last week or so. I'm currently about 15-0 on Dueling Book with this build, which is quite nice. I think it's been very good into the current meta. Really did want to actually cover what I feel like is the best build I've found into this new format. I wanted to just discuss the build, and also if you guys want to see a completely in-depth, comprehensive guide on branded, make sure to leave a like down below because I'm going to make a 3 to 4 hour video of me just talking branded theory, combos, and then also text. So make sure that this video gets to 300 likes and we will get that out as soon as possible. So now let's get right into it and comment down below what your favorite part of this deck profile was, and let's get right into it. So this is going to be a 50 card build. I think in the TCG, 50 cards is definitely the play right now. You could even run less. You could run a tiny bit more, but I think you really just don't want to be running whether it's 40 cards or 60 cards. I think 40 cards is a bit too weak in terms of the ceiling. I think it's not really going to be able to punch through the MALISS and RYZEAL boards that are out there. You're not going to be able to fit in the options that you need so that we are doing the 50 card build. I'm obviously running the standard ratios, 3 Albaz, 3 Fallen of Albaz. You kind of have to run 3. If you only run 2, you kind of kill your grind game. And then you have the 3 Aluber the Jester of DESPIA, your best 1-card combo in the deck. And we have actually changed up what the end boards are looking like in this deck. So now Aluber is kind of in an interesting spot, but we still want to max it out. And then we have 2 Cartesia, 1 Quem. This has really been the same for the last couple deck profiles, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. I think Cartesia is really there in order to dodge imperm and extend your plays. She's just great with that because you're still running fusion deployment in this build, and then also Quem is there. Obviously 2 Quem is great for the grind game, and there can be some grinding this format. I do think that you never want to see Quem in your hand though, so that's why we're only running 1. We either want to special summon this whether it's off the Titaniclad in the end phase or off of a branded opening, so that you are able to actually continue your plays or play through hand traps or insulate your line. And I think 1 is just fine. I never lose games because I don't have 2, and I think I lose more games from running 2. I think you just have to play a nice and tight grind game and not just like rely on Quem to do all your heavy lifting. And as long as you know how to insulate your boards through hand traps as well as you can, using your card advantage as well as possible, I think that 1 Quem is generally just fine. I know a lot of people have been asking me, why don't you run Azamina branded anymore? I've answered this in previous videos, but I do want to just mention quickly, I think it's really bad into Detonator and MALISS. You know, when MALISS has non-targeting banishes, they can just very easily out the Deception, and then also you're going to be out a lot of a card advantage. Same with RYZEAL with Detonator. Like, Deception is just terrible into Detonator, so it's just going to be one of those things that you don't want to really run. We're running 2 Mercurier, 1 Tragedy, 3 Shrouded Dragon, 1 Spriggan's Kit. I see some people don't run Spriggan's Kit, and I just feel like this is the best way to facilitate like playing through hand traps and branded. A lot of people just don't know how to use branded and high spirits properly, and I think that Kit is one of the best ways to use that card so that, you know, you can actually make a board and, you know, predict an Ash Blossom and still be able to set up a board that's really competent. So that's what that is there for. Also for the turn, this is like your best turn 3 or 4 card because you can obviously just recur the branded fusion. So it's always good to have like Kit in the pocket if you don't have to use her to get branded fusion initially, but she's also great to, you know, make your line even better if you need to search branded retribution. It's been really nice to use her to use like branded retribution as an end board piece. I've been doing that a lot in this build lately with Kit, so that's why she's there. Just great card. 3 Shrouded Dragon. I don't love, it's just for consistency. It's draw power. We're at 50 cards, so we still have to draw and see our board breakers, and I think it's also just a Dark Dragon, so that is kind of the theme with the deck when we're running things like Allura Darkness and Branded and High Spirits. So I think Shrouded Dragon is going to be just great, and then that's also why we're running 2 Mercurier. But you guys have seen from on stream, also if you didn't know, I stream every Monday and Friday, Master Duel branded, and then also TCG and other things depending on the day. So I think that you guys, if you are familiar with the streams, have been seeing that Tumor Courier has been incredible. The fact that I can banish the first one off a Gold Sark or off of a Lure, and then also be able to search the second one is incredible. Also, just hard opening Mercourier when I already have like 2 or 3 extenders is actually just like custom as hell. Basically, it's like opening RYZEAL Cross and RYZEAL. It's very custom. Basically, just play through infinite hand traps, and also it helps extend because if you banish it. So it's just such a good card. I'd rather run it than 2 Tragedy. Tragedy is better in like a patchwork build, but we'll wait for the Dragontail branded build to do that. And then for the Bystials quickly, 1 Saronir, 1 Magnemite, 1 Lubellion. Saronir is a good card, but when Verte is not in the game, I think these cards can be very bricky and branded. So you need 1 Saronir, you need 1 Lubellion. I think Lubellion is always the best thing to send off a branded fusion for the most part, and Saronir is just one of your best things that you can combo off with like high spirits. And I think this is just fine at 1 though, because I never want to see 2 Saronir in hand. It's a hand trap, but it's not like the best hand trap, although seeing this with Mulcharmy and drawing it is really nice. So I have debated on maybe going to 2 Saronir, but Magnemite has been really good so far too. So you want to run this. This card is just custom and will likely get banned soon, so that's why, you know, we're gonna use this for right now as we do. And also, if a ban list drops, guys, this list should still just be relevant, but if it does, we will obviously update the list. I just don't know when Konami's gonna drop the list, so I can't really go behind with what they're doing. 3 Fuwalos. I think Fuwalos is now just an honorary branded card because it's also a branded and high spirits target. So you can obviously use this going first or going second to unbreak your hand with high spirits. It's also just a custom god card going second against things like Mermal and Malice, which are your worst matchups this format. So I think you kind of have to run Fuwalos if you're trying to compete at a high level with branded, whether it's in the main or side deck. And that goes for really any deck in the game, right? So that's not anything special, and obviously this is getting reprinted in a month, so if you can't afford this, just wait a month and then grab these babies for sure. Then 1 Ido. So Ido's legal in the TCG, so we're gonna run it. Ido is an incredible card. This card basically says your opponent cannot special summon monsters at all. You let your opponent commit to like a normal summon, and then you basically and they don't even have to commit to a normal summon with this card because your opponent can't normal summon or set with this monster. They can't special summon either, so it's basically just Gimmick Puppet. And you might be like, oh, it's worse than Gimmick Puppet. But honestly, it's just like 1 step below Gimmick Puppet. It's almost as good. Anyone who's tested extensively can see that Ido, it only gets outed by Droplet, and no one's on Droplet unless you're like a deck that loses to Dweller. So that is something to say, but like this isn't like a standard part of my end board. If I have 2+ extenders, this does go on my end board though. I always make like Mirror Jade looping plus this. I'm not running the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord in this build, which we'll talk about more, but I think Light and Darkness Dragon Lord loses to way too many Bystials, and this card at least doesn't, because if you fuse under Branded Lost, you can idol lock them, and then they can't Bystial it at that point, so this is very good for that reason. I think it's just better than Lad, because Lad can get like they can get baited with Bystials and then just attack over with another Bystial. It's very easy to out Lad right now, especially with all the Mulcharmies in the game. So I think this is just like a better option. It's also our best Mulcharmy line. If we get Mulcharmied, we just go Branded Fusion and then make a Sanctifier Dragon. And if we have access to Cartesia or another card to get this in the graveyard, we basically are going to win the game. And even if not, then we can just Sanctifier and do our thing. So I think it's still just an incredible card that a lot of decks just cannot out. You guys saw this at the UK Open. It's still just one of our best going first lines. It's basically almost the equivalent of Gimmick Puppet. And even if they out it, they've already invested resources. And if you know how to play branded, you should still have like a Mirror Jade plus Renbrum at that point, which is like 3 interruptions. So and if your opponent is down 2 cards because of Droplet. Yeah. And then for the branded spells and traps, 1 branded fusion, 1 branded lost, 3 branded opening, 3 branded high spirits, and then 1 branded retribution. So yeah, hopefully branded fusion comes back to 2 or 3 next list, but if not, maybe something like grass or something, or Verte. That's all I could really ask for, Konami. But this is the standard setup. You might be asking, why no branded banishment? Because we aren't running the Lad, so there isn't really a whole lot of a point to running banishment. It is really good for the grind game, and this build isn't exactly built around, I mean, it is built around the grind game, but we're using other cards to grind than just like a second branded and red and like a branded banishment. So I think these are just fine. It means I'm not going to brick going second on like a branded banishment. And even then I can brick going first on a branded banishment too. So same with like the second branded in red, which is right here's the first one. I don't know why I didn't bring that out. This card's just like crazy. We are never milling it because we aren't running grass, so this card's always resolving. It's likely gonna make us into either whatever it is, either a sanctifier on our opponent's turn, or like a chaos star source is also one of my favorite things to make, just to pop 2 on my opponent's board. It's just like such a good option. If you have this plus like Rinbrum and Mirror Jade, that's like 5 interruptions. And if there's anything I'd change to this build, I'd add like a branded in white or a branded banishment, and then maybe consider Lad, because Lad is really good for shifter lines. I think that's kind of it right now, though. There's just not enough shifter for me to consider it, and also I'm really happy with this ratio. Also, like I said, I'm usually using Retribution as an end board piece in this build, whether it's just to extend and then recur it with Kit, so I can get like Retribution plus, you know, Mirror Jade plus Sanctifier. It's like a crazy board, honestly. If you guys want to see that combo, let me know down below. And then 3 high spirits just to unbrick your hands. You kind of need this in TCG, especially because, like, what are you doing with the Albaz and Bystials and Shroudeds that you have dead in your hand? This card just lets you go full combo. It's also a board breaker going second, so it's a great way to also just like play around Ash Blossom. Like if you have a Luber plus any dragon, you search this instead of branded fusion, which a lot of people don't know, and then you're able to, you know, at least put something in the graveyard, whether it's an Albion to get a red or like a Titanclad to get a Quem, which gets Albaz, which gets Mirror Jade. This card just helps you play around infinite hand traps, and it's also why we aren't running Nadir Servant. I think this card's basically our in-engine Nadir Servant. And brand loss is just crazy in this build too if you're running Ido. So this card, if you resolve Sanctifier under this, you win the game essentially. There's no outing it, right? And most of the time, in my opinion, you Sanctifier lock after you've you've droplet checked. Like you should be doing like Jade stuff, you know, Cartesia stuff, whatever you can to bait out that droplet, and then you Ido lock them. Like you're supposed to really, this is such a malleable build of branded, which is why it's one of my favorite builds, because I make my unboard and I can, it's very, it doesn't start out as much. It's like Mirror Jade plus Rinbrum plus like a red plus like one other thing, whether it's like Quem, Cartesia, or like Retribution. And from there, I can either make, you know, Mirror Jade plus Lock, or I could go, you know, Star Source plus Boral to pop 3, Stapelia 2, just for a negate. I like having a toolbox extra deck, and that's what this, I don't know, the main deck allows me to do, and allows me, because there's, you know, it's RYZEAL MALISS, so it's nothing too crazy. As long as you have interaction for those decks, you should be able to grind them kind of thing with your deck, because all your cards are quick effect on boards, so you have like a really good ability to stick big bodies that can constantly put pressure on your opponent while generating advantage off of like double Mirror Jade. So we'll get into that more. For the non-engine, 3 thrust, 1 talents, and then 1 fusion duplication. I think these cards are insane in TCG because Detonator, you know, Malice, there's no Omni negates also, so these cards are like always resolving. You always want to see these cards. Talents is kind of arguable not to run in your deck because you can't like take and link off, but like this card also just draws 2, so it helps you like get into your board breakers, so that's why I like it, honestly. And then also hand rip if you already have 2 extenders. So it can be really broken in that case. Just having the hand rip option is just crazy. And Talents Take also for quick OTK can sometimes it's just really good utility. It's your best search off a thrust if you already have branded fusion access, since we don't have grass. So going second. And then duplication just lets you, as long as you see these cards going first, you basically win the game. And then 3 super poly. I think it's the best board breaker in the game right now for the most part. I don't think Droplet's very good unless you're trying to out Dweller, and I'm not trying to out Dweller game 1. So, you know, I think Super Poly is very good. And also, since I'm running a toolbox extra deck, I have infinite targets for Super Poly. basically. So like what am I just making? Granguignol, Quertus, Proskinion, Garura, one of my 2 Mirror Jades, Star Source against Blue Eyes, Pop 2, Borreload against, or basically against any deck with Bystials. And then so I think, I wish I could run Mud Dragon, but I think Stapelia is good enough. I think Stapelia comes up for most of the time against like anything you'd want Mud Dragon. Also, if you're summoning Mud Dragon, you are losing the game. So like I only want my Super Poly targets to like win me the game. Like when I resolve Super Poly, I want to immediately win the game. When I Super Poly into a Mud Dragon, that I do not immediately win the game. Proskinion gets me there a lot of the time, so that's why like I go normal summon whatever it is, a Luber or, Quem. They go Imperm, I change Super Poly, make Proskinion into their, like, whatever it might be. If it's pure RYZEAL, I could just make the Quertus, but also if it's against Mitsurugi, which is, popular still, I can fuse off the Murakama plus Detonator, steal the Detonator, and get a pop, and it turns off their cross, and that's the name of the game right now. You need to turn off the cross, and you need to disrupt the Malice on board, and that's what this does. This still does not get you there all the time, though. But if you're able to turn off cross, you win against RYZEAL every time. That is the name of the game. Against Malice, it gets a lot more complicated because they have their traps, non-target banish. So games 2 and 3 gets a lot easier once you have like Feather Duster and like this as a thrust target. But for game 1 going second, you're really banking on like chaining allures, chaining card advantage, and being able to outgas your Malice end board. And Super Poly really is like an integral key of doing that. If you don't see Super Poly, I think, or like Fuwalos, you are likely not winning that game against Malice unless you're going like allure into talents, basically draw 4 into like banish Mercury or draw 5 kind of thing, because then you'll have like a 9-card hand to be able to play through all the Malice interruptions. But like you can't do that with a 6-card hand with branded as much as you can try unless you have like Super Poly essentially, so, or like Fuwalos, right? 3 Allure Darkness. This card's just crazy right now. 2, there's like no Apo to like be negating my Mercuriers or anything like that. Also, this just like is pure advantage. I just either banish Mercurier and then, or banish like a dragon that I can then fuse off like later in the game, or fuse back with the Lubellion later in the game. It's very good just to get through your 50 card build and then actually see your board breakers that you really do need to see, right? Like you need to see Super Poly against Malice, and like Malice isn't negating allure, so this card's just cracked in that regard. And then same with like thrust. This card allows you to actually like play with your engine a lot better. It converts your engine way better. Like if you have Albaz, Shrouded, and you see allure, right, like you can start digging for better cards. And there's a lot of 1-card starters in this deck. It's the board breaker version, right? So it does suck with Fuwalos, but I think you have to run both. Like I don't know, I wouldn't want to not run allure. I don't think there's like enough Drolls in the main deck to really not run allure. I think, yeah, Droll's in the game, but my build's low to the ground enough where like I don't die to Droll on allure. I can always like, if I recognize I'm gonna lose to a Droll on a certain play line, I'm not gonna do it, right? So yeah, no, this card's just great in my opinion, and it's been in testing very good. Foolish, Gold Sark, Called By, and 3 deployments. These cards are standard. This card sucks though, going second into any of the decks, but there isn't a better version. There's like literally no incentive not to run these cards, so that's kind of where we're at. Like there's no Verte, so like I don't care if I get locked in TCG and Master till I do, so I actually have cut this card down to 1. Also, Princess is in the game, but like Detonator is, right? And like Malice spot removal is in the game, so this card is not a board breaker anymore, right? Like unless you're going against Blue Eyes. And if we just looked at YCS Vegas, it was like 90% RYZEAL basically. And then we're going to go quickly over the extra deck. 2 Mirror Jade, 2 Albion, and 1 Lubellion. I think 2 Mirror Jade is like my whole grind game essentially at this point. That's the whole plan. Like I'm just grinding through 2 Mirror Jade. That's my unboard. I use the first Mirror Jade and then I go into a second one, or I loop that one and then go into a third essentially. It's kind of old school branded, but I think it's the best way to like play a branded unboard at the moment. It's also a Super Poly target, right, with Albaz, so I think running 2 is just, you need to do that, especially if you're not running the lad. And I think this card's good going first and going second. It's an extender, board breaker. It's the best boss monster in the game. It's just an incredible card. So I think 2 is just kind of required at the moment. I know I was on 1 in like the last list, but I even mentioned I was just like, I acknowledge we definitely probably need the second. 1 Titanclad, 1 Sanctifier, 1 Rinbrum for the rest of the Albaz fusions. Sanctifier's the GOAT. This card is your best chummy target. See some people not even run it now. You run this card even if you don't run the lock. Like, the lock isn't required. I do think it is probably one of the best options we have, though. 1 Rinbrum. Yeah, no, this card's your best chummy line. And then also it's non-targeted. You can also just make this straight off a Branded Fusion, Screen the Grind game. You get to, recycle your Mirror Jade. It's very good in that regard. Also for the Ido line, so like we're going into this card a ton in this build too. Obviously Mirror Jade's more important, but this is just like your best like second or third boss monster in the deck. Rinbrum's your best like pseudo interruption, honestly. So this card's like the GOAT. You're always sending this off of. This is like your number one send off of Mirror Jade. That's why you always want to like prioritize getting an Albaz in the graveyard, so that if you have an Albaz plus if you have a Mirror Jade on the board, you can just easily send the Rinbrum and then get yourself 2 more interruptions by just having that Albaz plus Rinbrum in the graveyard. Very important. In order to facilitate like really layered end boards with Branded. I think that's like the real skill of the deck right now, is to try to like make the end boards as layered as possible and be able to sequence through end boards that there are, and then running like the correct deck build to be able to do that, right? So, and then 1 Titanclad, 1 Garura, Super Poly target. This could probably be cut, but sometimes it's nice to like just send to get a draw if I need a draw for like Super Poly or something off a Grand Guignol. Speaking of Grand Guignol, I'm only running 1, but I'd like to run 2 because I'm running the Ido. So I feel like 2 is probably correct, but like I'm choosing to run the Boral over the second Guignol because Boral is just very good under Shifter. I need a good Shifter line that's not just Rinbrum or Stapelia, in my opinion. It's removal too, so I can run, I have Chaos Star Source plus Boral, so I have a constant option for removal, which is very good. I need something for RYZEAL Cross, so that's what these guys are there for. Also, Chaos Star Source is basically the new Guardian Chimera. This card's just crazy. You can also just make it off a Branded Fusion or Cartesia and still pop. So that's why it's better in the deck than Guardian Chimera, and that's why we're not running it anymore. 1 Despian Queritus. It's a Super Poly target. Also summon it off of the Grand Guignol. And then 1 Despian Proskynion. This is like our best Super Poly target by far. Because you get to steal a body, and then also it's great in time because you can burn for damage, and it's just a huge body, so it's just like super utility, and it makes your Super Poly a lot better. All these cards are just like random Super Poly targets on top of Stapelia. I think Stapelia you need though if you're running Super Poly, so that's why that's there, obviously. And then yeah, so that's the extra deck. This extra deck's very utility based, and it goes very well with Super Poly, but also makes it so you aren't just like making shit cards. These are all just, if you resolve them, you're like probably in a great spot. And then the side deck is like you guys are the side deck. Oh my gosh, it's so figured out for Branded at this point. There's like 12 cards you literally have to run in every Branded side deck. I'm going to show you guys what they are. 1 Feather Duster, 2 Lightning Storm, because this card clears every deck. Like, you side this in against every deck. You side this in against RYZEAL, you clear the Cross and the Imperms. You side this in against Malice, you force all their interruption. Amazing. You go against Blue Eyes, you literally kill them by resolving this card. So yeah, no, this card's just goated with the sauce. These cards are goated with the sauce right now. And then Masquerade for time, you need to run something. And then here are the rest of the mandatory cards. 3 Artifact Lancia. I guess this is technically not mandatory, but it's mandatory between the main or the side, that's for sure. And then 3 Artifact Lancia for Malice, you have to run it so you don't lose against that deck. And then and also it's good against Crystron. And then 3 Xyz Encore, and then 3 Forbidden Droplet. You just have to run these cards so you don't auto lose to Dweller, and these 12 cards are literally non-debatable right now in Branded, in my opinion. You lose to Dweller going second for the most part, so you need to have these cards. They're also great into Detonator, so it solves your RYZEAL matchup. These 6 cards, you just side this 9 in against RYZEAL. You side this 6 in against MALISS, which is still pretty solid because then you have the Fuwalos, which is very good against MALISS in the main deck, where it's not really great against RYZEAL. And then you have 3 cards going first. Also, Masquerade, you just need an option to play in time. It's very good card also against MALISS, so it's just crazy there. And then 2 fusion dupes. I just side out the Fuwalos for this, plus like a droplet for my going first side patterns, always. This card is just generically good against every deck going first, unless it's a shifter deck. And even then, like, you can't guarantee they see shifter, so if they don't, this is just exactly what you want to see. You know, you could brick entirely, you could just draw Shrouded, send Branded Fusion, and set dupe, and you're still just gonna full combo. And having this on top of, like, literally, like, a Mirror Jade is just, it's the most interaction you could ever see in this deck, so, you know, you never lose those games going first when you see this card and you get access to Branded Fusion. You even have to resolve the Branded Fusion, right? But yeah, no, these cards are just, like, mandatory because of Dweller. Hopefully Dweller gets banned, so I don't have to run these 6 cards, frankly. I think this card sucks into Detonator, but still there. I think this card's great into Detonator. You just have to be careful, though, because, like, some hands you don't need to Dweller, or this might sound weird, but you don't need to Encore the Dweller, right? So, like, let's just, like, sometimes Detonator is just, like, more important to stop than Dweller. So you just have to pick and choose your battles sometimes, because there's always Detonator and Dweller, but you have to out usually one of them. And, you know, if your hand says, oh, I'm killing them this turn, or I have enough interruption, that Dweller isn't going to, like, give me enough in the end phase to establish anything. I think you could obviously just get rid of the Detonator and then just play the interactivity game, and stuff like that. But I do think these are mandatory %. So yeah, guys, that was my branded build for the rest of this format. Won't have a new build until we get a ban list. But I did want to give you guys an update and give some more in-depth theory. And like I said, I'm going to make that 3 to 4 hour guide on this build and just, like, talking about, like, branded and, like, the best things to do with branded. It's going to be a really in-depth video. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And yeah, guys, I know I've been making a lot more branded content lately. Obviously, I've always kind of been one of the branded guys on YouTube, but I've been really enjoying branded over on Master Duel. I kind of fell out of it with TCG, but now I'm kind of back on branded in the TCG. I do love RYZEAL, but I think that branded has always had my heart in this game, and it's the most fun deck in the nothing beats resolving Branded Fusion. I think that with the recent tops with YCS Birmingham in second place at the UK Open, and then multiple regional tops, including someone taking my deck list and then getting top 8 at a regional with it, I think that branded is really positioned very strong. It's a top 10 deck for sure. And I think that it's going to keep getting better, especially in the face of a ban list where we should get some support, whether it's like Verte, whether it's, you know, 2 grass or 2 branded fusion. I think that, you know, and on top of RYZEAL and MALISS hits, like, if Dweller gets banned, that's like an automatic buff to branded. So, you know, stuff like that. Also, if MALISS gets hits, that's an automatic buff to branded. Same with RYZEAL. So there's a lot to look forward to in the future with branded. If you guys want to leave a comment down below what you guys thought about the stack profile, what did you think of the build, let me know down below. And let me know if you guys want to see that combo / discussion / just, like, really just a play-by-play guide of how to play branded in 2025. With that being said, be seeing you guys later. Have a great day. And also, if I haven't already hit it, thank you for 10,000 subscribers, guys. And if we haven't hit it, either way, subscribe if you haven't already. Click the join button today if you want to help support the channel. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and use my TCG player affiliate link. We'll be seeing you guys later. Bye now.